It is the effective facilitation of those early returns, however, that continues to be the issue. Since July, the government has impressed upon the public its commitment to a 180-day plan for resettlement, during which it has promised to return 80% of the displaced. But the logistics of this plan remain virtually unknown, and many have expressed skepticism with regard to its very feasibility. I spoke with head of the Consortium for Humanitarian Agencies, Jeevan Thiagarajah, to find out more. Hi, Mr. Thiagarajah. Thanks for joining me on the program.
Pleasure.
The flooding over the weekend in Manik Farm was a reminder of the urgency to resettle the IDPs as soon as possible. Now, as far as the public is aware, there is a 180-day plan that the government is in the process of implementing, which plans to return 80% of IDPs by something like the end of this year. As one of the agencies working with the government on this, can you tell me how far the plan has progressed up till now?
To the extent we know, the 5 districts have prepared their return plans, and I imagine it's also been consolidated. I gather the United Nations system has been briefed on it. There has been an announcement as we speak today of the report speaks of 15,000 families due to return to Jaffna. So clearly return is on its threshold, as it were. Some modest return occurred about a week back. More can certainly follow.
Okay. So like you said, it's been happening in slowly and in small batches. But do you have any idea of a number? Can you give me a number? How many have been resettled so far? It's 3 months on now.
Yeah, there was a small group which went to Mana. There was another cluster which went over to the eastern province very recently. But I think one could safely imagine that before the monsoons actually break out, Jaffna and Mana could be likely candidates in terms of geographical regions which can see return.
Okay, how soon do you think this can?
It would be a hazard to put a dateline on this, but I think it's on the threshold of return. I think what could be determining this would be the clearances for the individuals.
Okay. Even within the government, there have been conflicting statements issued about the feasibility of this 180-day plan. Some say that it is realistic that 80% can be returned by the end of the year. Some say that maybe that number is a bit too high. With your experience on the ground, what do you think? What's your opinion?
I think if there is a overriding will, we can do it, and I feel that we can do it. The only unknown quantity is, would there be any unsafe ground which is contaminated? That's the only unknown quantity in this whole variations, as it were.
Now, you've been one of the most vocal critics of decongestions, matters of decongestions within the camps. What is being done in this regard?
There was planning, but I think the bottom line is that it is intolerable that you would have anything more than one family in a tent. Anything more than that is absolutely intolerable. And I think that is fundamental, which we really have to get done very rapidly. The second one is that with that decongesting of tents, more land will be claimed by the families, which means that you need to space out the tents more, which means you may need to move into a few more satellite camps. But in doing all of this, one has to realize that the lifetime of a tent is very limited. And I think we would see that stark reality when the rains come.
Okay. And these issues of decongestion, it all ties up with what many human rights activists are calling the indignity of having to live in these camps and queue up for food, queue up for the use of sanitation facilities, things like that. And a lot of them say that the authorities very often neglect this as a factor. just saying that it's adequate, that they have their basic facilities and everything's working in that regard. Do you think that maybe authorities need to be more sensitive in terms of this indignity factor?
I'm not sure whether people on the ground are insensitive, because from the people that I deal with, they clearly see, in fact, they suffer as a result of what they see. It's in our capacity to provide the facilities. For example, sanitation is well within our control, shelter is well within our control. And I think we need to be pushing very hard to get the numbers in the right scales, to ensure that these people have the basics and that the basics are 100%.
And finally, what is the most pressing concern that you think needs to be addressed in terms of the camps and resettlement at this point?
I think collective decision making, a decisive one, that is to, now that we know how many can go to some of the home districts, to do so and to prepare for the return on the one hand, decongest the tents, offload the zones, prepare for the monsoon and ensure that the basics that are necessary in a monsoon is there and on time.
Sri Lanka's displaced, especially those in the north, have suffered enough. Hopefully, Mr. Thiagarajah's view that the impending rains will act as a catalyst for resettlement will indeed mean a speedier return for these civilians. We're going in for a break right now, but when we return, we shift our focus onto Sri Lanka's youth and their role in the country's reconciliation process.